Welcome to the Saynetwork Podcast. I'm Megan, and I'm here with Jim Sparks.
Hello.
And we have a special guest, Krystina Macias.
Hey, guys.
You guys all know Christina. She's been on previous seasons of the podcast, so we're excited to have her on here.
Thanks.
As you guys probably know, if you're listening, podcasts are really popular right now. You're listening to a podcast right now.
A popular one they're listening to.
I don't know if I'd stretch it that far,
yeah.
but
We have a very strong demographic support of family members that like this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm 1 for 7 of my family that
I just said, hi, Mom. My mom's not listening to one of these. She doesn't know it exists.
So yeah, podcasts are pretty popular, and so we are going to be talking about some of our favorite podcasts. Some of them you've maybe heard of, some of them maybe not, but we're just going to be chatting about that. And then also we are going to be talking about a project called Salvation Village, which is really cool that Salvation Army is working on. And we'll highlight and talk a little bit more about kind of homelessness in Los Angeles as well, since that's where Salvation Village little villages are popping up. So with that, I have a couple of podcast statistics, I guess, to share that I think can kind of get our conversation going. So currently across all platforms, there are approximately 700,000 different podcasts out there, which is a lot.
Wow.
And 29 million podcast episodes out there.
Wow.
Which is pretty crazy. It's a lot more than I thought. I guess I didn't really know how many there would be, but there's a lot.
There's a podcast for anything.
Basically.
If you like something, there seems to be a podcast for it.
Yep.
May not be a lot of them, but you're going to get someone that's crazy like you.
Yeah.
One to let people know
you're not alone.
That you're not alone. Oh, that's a good podcast right there.
You're not alone.
You're not alone podcast.
We should see if there's one out there.
There probably is.
So yeah, podcast listeners consume an average of 7 different podcasts per week. I don't think I'm at 7, but that's quite a bit, I think.
I might be close to that if pending if I'm driving or carpooling. If I'm carpooling, then I'm a lot less. But if I'm driving by myself, then I'd probably be right around that range.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. I also pulled up a top 10 list of the top 10 podcasts so far of 2021. And we'll see if you guys have heard of these. But first, do you want to take a guess at what might be on this list?
What's the year to date? Like, what are we looking at here?
Looks like this is up to Q2, so June of 2021.
So for the year.
For 2021, so from January to June of 2021.
A topic? Is this what we're thinking?
Most popular podcasts, like top 10 most listened to. What do you think might be on that list?
Is it Malcolm Gladwell on one of those? Revisionist History?
It is not.
Smartless?
Yeah. Is it?
Is that on there?
I do not see that on here either.
Dang, what kind of list is this?
I know.
They're probably like serial type podcasts.
Serial is on there.
Yeah.
Serial is on there. It's number 9. So I'll just read it. Number 1, Joe Rogan Experience.
Oh, of course.
Should have known.
Yes. Jeez, Joe Rogan Experience. You know, it's actually an appropriate title for his podcast. It's an experience.
It is.
Not all experiences are great. His are sometimes fun, sometimes terrible. So it's an experience.
He's letting you know it's his.
It's appropriately titled, I will say.
Yeah. Yep. Number 2, The Daily. Number 3, Crime Junkie. Number 4, This American Life. Number 5, Stuff You Should Know. Number 6,
good one.
My Favorite Murder.
Yes.
Which I tried to get into that one and I just couldn't get
into it. Wait. Girls, you didn't get into a murder podcast?
No, that's my favorite.
Oh,
I couldn't, but she
I'm
loves
ready.
it. Yeah, I couldn't get into it, but she loves it.
There's a lot of things I do not understand about females, and I will never understand. But I cannot believe your guys' obsession with murders. Females like the murders. Like the Lifetime channel is dedicated to female murders, and you guys are in.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Scares me.
It's good stuff. Number 7, Pod Save America. Number 8, Office Ladies. Number 9, Serial. And number 10, Ben Shapiro Show. So
Office Ladies is Jenna Fisher and
I'm
Anna
not
Kingsley?
sure.
Yeah.
I think
so.
Who are they? Pam and
Angela.
Yeah.
Angela.
I like them.
Me too. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So yeah, podcasts are popular. So I thought we could talk a little bit about what podcasts we're listening to and like why we like it. So anybody want to go first?
I could go first. I listen to a lot of podcasts. There's several sports podcasts that I listen to. I like Smartless, which is Jason Bateman, Will Arnett, and why'd I go blank on the other guy? Jack from Will and Grace.
Just Jack?
No, yeah, Hayes.
Sean Hayes.
Sean Hayes. It's really good. It's super funny. They banter a lot. You don't actually learn much. They interview people, and it's just banter and casual conversation. There's a lot of swearing. I kind of do without with that. But they get into some interesting, fun topics, and it's just a laugh. Again, a lot of swearing. It's unnecessary to me, but they've had some really fun interviews in there. So that could give me the laugh. I like banter, like especially when you're hearing friends banter that they're friends, and so they're able to really have fun with each other. I like that. I like Revisionist History with Malcolm Gladwell. It's fun. And the HBR, Harvard Business Review Idea Cast is another one that I listen to. Freakonomics I listen to.
Do you hit the number 7 a week? Do you listen to 7 a week?
I can, yeah. I could, and No Stupid Questions is actually a spinoff of the Freakonomics. I really like that. They'll answer questions, and it's two different perspectives, from a social economist to a behavioral psychologist, I believe is what she is. And I won't click on her name, but and they give their response, their takes from their field on these topics. That one was perfect for me during pandemic when I was working at home, because I would walk 2 miles during lunch, and their podcast would be about 36 or 37 minutes, and that was right about my walk. And so I would start it, and then I'd finish right when they would finish. So that was kind of nice. Yeah, I like that one. My kids have a podcast that they love, and it's called Brains On. And it is a science-based podcast put out by NPR Radio, I think, produces it. And they love that podcast. They can't get enough of that podcast. And I do think that the kids' podcast area is maybe... I haven't found a lot of great kids podcasts because my kids like it.
Are there a lot of kids podcasts out there, or is that kind of something?
There are, but I think there's more opportunity for that.
I've never heard of that.
I've been kicking around stuff because, I've been kicking around the idea of doing a kids podcast centered around athletes and like them being kids and what it was like for them being kids, and then preparing and becoming an athlete, and kind of getting some of those fun stories, because like I have to drive my kids all around for soccer and baseball and stuff, and we're in the car, and I don't like listening to the radio when they're in the car, but sometimes we don't have a lot of conversation as well. So I turn a podcast on, and they're in 100%. They love it, and it's produced really well, but I think there's opportunities there for other podcasts that would be really good. And so if someone's listening and they're like, oh, well, my kids like to listen to this, let me know. But we've tried a few. Like we just tried 2 this last weekend, and they were really bad. They weren't very good. So I think it's a hard market to do it. But so Brains On is another one. I don't know. Accidental and Creative is another one I listen to. Tim Ferriss I listen to. I don't know. I got a long list.
Wow. That's
That
a
is
lot.
a lot.
Yeah, and I don't listen to every single one of them. I go by topic in there. So
The mood, whatever you're feeling.
whatever I'm feeling. Yeah, there's times where like I want to hear something inspiring, and then there's other times where I just want something on that I could listen to and not have to digest a ton of, or just have a laugh.
Yeah.
So yeah, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I really wanted to get into podcasting many years ago. It's probably like even 10 years ago. And then I was too afraid because I didn't think people would find anything interesting, which is probably still true. But I feel like I would have gotten in the game early enough to sort it out. And now I'm like, there's a lot of competition out there.
I was going to say, have you been listening to podcasts for a long time, like pretty early from when this started? Because I didn't start hearing about podcasts till maybe like 5 years ago.
Okay, yeah, I did early on, and then I went away from it. The first podcast I actually listened to, I don't remember what it was called. It was a pilot, an airline pilot, talking about being an airline pilot, and was telling stories. He didn't disclose what airline he worked for or anything like that, but was telling stories of flying, and there was some crazy stories in there because I love stories. And so then I got into it, and then I kind of went away for it a little bit, and then I came back. But I love listening to stories. I love listening to how people think and process stuff. Those are my favorite. I didn't realize I liked social economists, or economic podcasts as much as I do. But a lot of the podcasts that I listen to are centered around economics and social economics. I love. So I didn't realize I like this kind of stuff until I started listening to it. And then they'll have like a spinoff, or they'll have a guest on and they recommend someone else. And so then I'll listen to that, go down a rabbit hole. But yeah, it's fun. I enjoy it. I am not one of those though. Like if I'm exercising, I can't listen to a podcast. I can't. I know some people do and stuff, but it's got to be, feels like it's conditioned to just being in my car or if I'm walking by myself. But I don't know. That's kind of what I've been listening to. I noticed I didn't say any religious ones. I apologize. Do I need to apologize for that? No,
I mean,
I don't need to apologize.
Maybe listen to a sermon in the car or something.
That was I feel like the first way I found out about podcasts. Like Francis Chan had a few of them. This was like 11 years ago, maybe, and I was like, "What is a podcast?" And you had to download it, and I was very confused because I don't know, iPhones were not a thing. But that was like the first type of not like sermon that I didn't watch on because not even on YouTube. I think at the time I would watch them. It was just like at church. But he had some on there, and they were super interesting, and I would always download them. And so there are some out there.
Oh, there's a bunch. I just never gravitated, which is interesting because it wasn't uncommon for me when I was younger, riding in the car, listening to a sermon on the radio.
Right.
But for me, a podcast is different. I don't know why they're different. They're different, and they're not. I mean, it's the same people talking.
Yeah.
It's a little clearer but yeah, not really. I haven't listened to the Mars Hill one. I know everyone is
I have that on my list. I'll talk about that in a minute, but I'll go to Krystina first. Krystina, what podcasts have you been listening to? What do you like? And yeah, what are kind of like your go-tos?
So
Murder in the First.
Yeah, I have this thing, I think like it's an OCD thing for sure, where I started off with my favorite murder, and then it was like I want to start from the very beginning, which was not the best idea.
Wait, I'm sorry. My favorite murder is the topic of the podcast or the title of it?
The title of it. My
Okay.
favorite murder.
I didn't know if you had your murders ranked.
I think one is two girls, right?
Two girls
talking. Okay.
Yeah, so they're not like experts or anything. They just like true crime, and they have a lot of banter as well. They talk about a bunch of other things as well. What's happening? They talk a lot about mental health, like their own struggles, as well as like letting people know, like, hey, go and seek help and stuff. So there's like a whole following, which is really interesting. But yeah, they pick a story and they share it with one another. And it's usually like this can go like an hour and a half, one episode, hour and 45 sometimes. So it's great for commutes.
Yeah.
Because then you're like, oh, I'm home already.
Just so the listeners know, we all commute over an hour to work. So we have plenty of time. Each way, yes.
Yeah. So if I listen to one whole one in one end of the drive, then it's a long one. It was a long day. But yeah, so my favorite murder is my favorite. And I think I went on like in episode 100 and something. And then at some point I was like, I should start from the beginning because I like to do things in order. And so I did, and I never caught up. Like to the day I have not been able to catch up. Yeah, because I have like 100 and something of
what
them.
number are you on now?
Like 120 maybe.
Wow.
Yeah, but the thing is that they also have in between ones that they do like what is it, like hometown. They have people call in and they'll do like a hometown murder of like their personal like places in Whittier where somebody passed away or something, someone got murdered or something. So they'll read those stories out, like their emails and whatnot. So they'll have those in between their actual episodes. So you just could never really catch up. So like stuff that happened in like 2017, I'm like, well, I'm in like 2020, like still hearing about that, So yeah, they're super good. I mean, murder. true crime. It's just my thing. I don't know. It is a girl thing.
Yeah.
It's not
know.
exclusively a girl thing. It's just very popular in the lady community.
There's
Yeah.
just something
Crime.
about it. Like, I don't know. I don't know why I'm drawn to it as well, but for whatever reason.
Yeah, it's
We've worked
fascinating.
together for many years now.
Mhm.
7 years for you?
6 years.
6 years for
into
you.
my 7th year. Yeah.
So the three of us have worked in the same office for 6 years. There has been a lot of murder talk
yeah.
over the years.
It's only grown, I feel, though, like in documentaries,
Yeah.
articles, like you just hear about it a lot more in different areas where it's like very accessible.
Yes. And Netflix doesn't help either because they produce
Yeah.
a lot of like crime documentaries, and I feel like we're super onto
Yeah.
onto those.
Rabbit holes for sure.
Am I a hipster for not subscribing to Netflix? Like, is it like a reverse thing at this point? I've never subscribed to it. So is it sad or hipster? Like, it's somewhere in between.
It's definitely not hipster, I don't think. I think it's just sad.
That's possible.
No, you're missing out. There's some good documentaries on there.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. But yes, so true crime. I've tried other ones, but I really like their conversation. They're just like very compatible and like they're really funny. I could do without the cursing as well. There's a lot of that. But then there's also a lot of honesty in what they talk about and stuff. So I kind of enjoy that a lot. They have like a whole following that they call Murderinos.
No.
Yeah, it's a whole thing.
Wow.
So
I'm
they
out.
tour, and they also tour. Like they'll go to different all around the world actually, and people show up and
Oh,
they
yeah.
share those things.
Yeah,
and-
Wow.
yeah.
That's next step for podcasts is they
Yeah.
do make quite a bit of money doing tours.
Yeah,
and
which
stuff.
is, I mean, I would go. You get to see it in real life.
I'm
even
out
though you
on
hear it.
the fan name. I'm out.
Murderinos, yeah.
I'm out on any. It doesn't matter. It's not just them. Anybody who has anything who has their name with a Eno or a lights or ites or anything like that.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Murderites.
I'm out. Yeah.
It sounds like a term from the Bible.
Yeah, right.
Or
Seriously.
a pun off your name, Believers. I'm out. Like,
yeah.
no,
Yeah,
sorry, I'm out.
Murderinos.
We're done.
I don't know who came up with it. But
I
it's
don't
a
know why
whole
we
thing.
change names all the time. I don't know why we have to do that.
Yeah, I don't know, but they actually get together in like their like community groups, like Redwood groups.
Wow.
A plug there. And like, yeah, they get together because the thing is that you talk to random people and you're like, oh yeah, I like, have you heard this or have you watched this documentary? And most of the time they're like, oh, you like crime or you like, murder stuff, and then you're like, this is awkward. Probably not the best person to talk to about this. So if you're already in a group with people who like that stuff, then it's easier, So.
Wow.
Yeah. So My Favorite Murder is one of them. It's just fascinating and disturbing half the time, but I don't know. I can't look away. It's just really good. Another one that I like is called Bad Christian. And so yeah, that's it's a little bit different. It's these two guys, which they invite other people to come on, obviously, but these two guys from one of my favorite emo bands, Emery. Yeah.
Emo Christian band?
Emo at some point
At
was
some
Christian
point,
band.
yeah.
Yes.
Seems like an oxymoron, but go ahead.
Well, that was a whole thing at the time, like in high school at least. It was all these bands that I liked that were hardcore emo, and they were Christian bands, so it was like, okay, it was okay to listen to because, if not, my mom wouldn't let me or something. And they would yell, so then it was still borderline, like, I don't know if I want you to listen to that
Mhm.
because, the Hispanics. But eventually...
for the Hispanics.
The Hispanics.
All of the Hispanics.
Which was, it's a whole different ball game there. But yeah, so two of these guys are doing this podcast called Bad Christian, and they're basically like asking questions and challenging like evangelical Christianity, like all of these different issues with it, or like this whole term of like deconstructing, right? Like they kind of just like challenge a lot of different things, and they grew up Christian, so they just started talking about it and discussing it. Could be light, could be heavy,
Mhm.
Obviously.
We talked about that in another podcast that we recorded, deconstructing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we did. Which, by the way, side note, we should have an episode dedicated to like music and bands that we like.
Yes.
Like that would be a really good
I
one.
would be into
Anyway,
that. Yeah.
side note noted.
Exactly.
Nobody will know the bands I like. I might not be a guest on that episode.
Any banjo band.
Any
I
banjo.
can't even name you
Bluegrass too. You were
Yep,
into
bluegrass
that as well?
and
Yeah.
folk. You
Yep.
put a banjo or a mandolin in, I'm in.
one. I can't name one.
I can't either.
I don't think I'd be anti. I just don't know.
Yeah.
Gotta send
It
me
brings a
some
lot of
stuff.
joy to my heart.
All right.
Good musicians?
No, mine is
I'm
very,
out though, so don't invite me for that one.
Mine is very different than that. But yeah, so anyway, they kind of get together. They, I don't know, they kind of talk about a lot of different things. It's just quirky and curious and creative and challenging, all sorts of different things. And it's kind of like healing in some ways, because there's a lot of just things that we grew up with in, at the church, where it's like, oh yeah, I get that. I remember that being difficult for me. I don't know. It could be about music, say, like we're saying. That was not really allowed for me. I wasn't allowed to listen to like secular music, So where was the divide? And at the time, like those bands they were being challenged in that way. Like, is every song going to mention Jesus? Because if not, you're secular, So do you listen to it? Do you not? Can you not? Is it okay?
Or if they're a Christian band, or are they a band that are Christians?
Exactly.
Oh, snap.
Oh, it was a whole thing, right? The whole thing. So they kind of continue those conversations in other areas, obviously. But like, yeah, it's like nice to hear that, okay, yeah, I remember those things. It's wasn't alone. and it's nice because it's all of these two guys that are part of this band that obviously, like, I feel like got me through my teenage angst, that kind of stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of other podcasts like that, but I seem to stick with the murder or like the deconstructing, reconstructing Christianity type podcast. Yeah.
It's fun.
Those are good.
What are you listening to, Megan?
Well, actually, I'm on that same wavelength. The ones that I want to suggest are of that same idea. So one that I really like is called Criminal. It's basically just like crime stories, but they're kind of fun crime stories, like in the sense of like
Fun
you
crime
wonder,
stories.
yeah, you're like, is that really a crime? And it goes back to like the 1900s. They look at like old crimes and stuff from, I don't know,
Do
back
they talk
in the
about
day.
like stupid laws?
Yeah,
okay, cool.
stuff
I like that stuff. That's
yeah,
fun.
just kind of random, like random things. It's really interesting. They're just kind of one-off like stories too. So I really like that one. It's called Criminal. Another crime one that I like. It's actually the Wrongful Conviction podcast, and specifically,
That one's funny. I think that one's
Yeah.
hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
they have a branch of it called Junk Science, and I really like those episodes because they kind of debunk like different evidence that has convicted people that they say is like junk science. So like, for example, they'll say like bite marks. They'll break down like bite marks and how that's not really like scientific like evidence, yet people have been convicted and spent their entire life in prison over a conviction due to bite mark evidence. Or they'll talk about
Bundy, to accept Ted Bundy, actually.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
So facts.
Yep. So it's so fascinating to me that, yeah, like people have been convicted over like stuff that isn't even like accepted in like the scientific community. So yeah, there's like one on bite marks. There's one on, I think fingerprinting is one. I think like stab wounds or something like that.
All that motion.
Yeah, whatever.
Never went that way.
No. It's like that.
It's just the stabbing hand.
Yeah,
I guess.
exactly.
I don't know.
Stabby hand.
I'm just taking notes, mental notes.
Yep.
So yeah, that one is really good. I really like that one, and it's produced by, I think, like the Innocence Project or something. So if you're into that, this is their podcast. And then I am on that Rise and Fall of Mars Hill train. I've been listening to that. There's been like new episodes that come out every week or every other week, I think. And the verdict's still out for me on that one. They're not completely done with the season, but I think the last episode's either just came out or is coming out or something at the time that we're recording this podcast. But yeah, it's really interesting. There's some stuff in there that I think is like kind of useless and not helpful to like telling the story of Mars Hill. But then there's other stuff in there that is just like really fascinating because it's, if you're not familiar with Mars Hill, they were like a mega church that like rose really, really quickly to prominence and then fell very, very quickly. And their leader is Mark Driscoll. And Mark Driscoll has come under different controversy for some different things. It's kind of revolves around his like leadership of Mars Hill and some critique of that. And yeah, I don't know. Like I said, the verdict's kind of still out for me. I like Mark Driscoll as a Bible teacher. I think he's done some really great like Bible teaching series and stuff. But obviously, on the flip side, you know, he's made some pretty big like mistakes. Kind of, I think, just ego kind of got in the way of some of the stuff that he was doing. Unfortunately, some of the good that was happening, the ego kind of overshadowed that. Unfortunately, so yeah, those are two that I've kind of been into. Well, sorry, 3 that I've been into recently. And then this is not a podcast, but recently I've been into audiobooks as well. I'm slowly like trying to get through all my
I love audiobooks.
nerd books, but like through audio version since I have a long drive as well.
Yep.
So,
I like the audiobook.
I like to actually read the book.
I don't.
There's something about my eyeballs that need it.
Yeah, I don't.
yeah.
I haven't tried though. Maybe I should try something.
I am conditioned to when I start reading, I go to sleep immediately.
Okay, yeah.
Like locked in.
Even an audiobook would as well.
No, audiobook, I'm in.
Oh, okay, audio.
It's a
you're good.
podcast.
Yeah.
Is it because of their voice?
Ooh, so I brought this up recently. So on Audible, if you have a subscription to Audible, I don't know if it's directly because of Audible, but there is a narrator that narrates some of the books because, you know, they pay these people to do it. And he's awful. He bothers me so much. And there's been several books that I really, really, really wanted to go through. And so when I hear he's the narrator, I'm like, I'm out. I can't do it. And the biggest thing is like, if there's any sort of female that like, because I don't read, you know, I'm reading fiction, not fiction books, right? And so he uses a female's voice, and that really bothers me.
Oh.
And I don't like it. And like immediately, I'm like, I'm out. And so he's ruined a few for me. But there's this one voice that I listen to. I don't care what the book is. If he's reading it, I'm in 100%. There's something about his voice that really is engaging to me. But yeah, I like audiobooks.
Yeah. I think the voice does make a big difference.
Yeah, I mean,
sometimes, even in a podcast.
You're in it for the long haul.
Yeah.
I actually most prefer it, interestingly enough, non-professional, like when the author reads it. It doesn't have to be a soothing voice, but when the author reads it, I found that they give extra bits in there, and I really like that because they're like, this is kind of why I wrote this section, and they're able to kind of explain a little bit more. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Tangent but related. Do you guys have the Calm app?
Calm
No.
app?
It's like for anxiety or like to try and
Calm
sleep.
app.
Calm app.
Okay.
It's free right now. I don't know. Or maybe just because of COVID, but it's been helpful. But they have sleep stories where like LeBron or Matthew McConaughey or like a few other people have like read you a story. Idris Elba actually does one of them too.
I don't know if I could go to sleep with Matthew McConaughey in my ears.
No, you try.
Idris Elba, yeah, definitely. That guy's
it's
a
the
really
voice.
soothing voice.
Yeah, but LeBron, no, it still works though. I don't know, maybe it's just because whatever, it's LeBron. But you know, in general, they'll read you some sort of story, like journey story, whatever, and it works.
Huh.
It actually does work.
All right.
Yeah. It's like very soothing, but it's still very
Time
much.
to go to sleep there, Tiger.
Yeah. You're like, tell me more.
That was
More.
Very terrible Matthew McConaughey.
All right. Well, I just want to clarify that these are our personal recommendations. We're not recommending these podcasts on behalf of the Salvation Army or anything
I'm
like
not
that.
even recommending it. I'm just saying that's what I've listened to.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
just sharing what we're listening to, just clarifying in there. I don't want you to like get into one of these podcasts and
And be
hear
like,
a
what
bunch of
is wrong
cursing
with
or craziness. Yes.
I didn't tell them to do it.
Oh, that's how drugs get started, Krystina.
So we're going to switch gears a little bit, and I want to share a little bit about a project that I think is pretty cool that Salvation Army is doing. So I think if you do any sort of research on homelessness in the U.S., chances are you're going to see something about Los Angeles pop up. I mean, there's just always as with a lot of cities, honestly, I think any major, small and large cities really at this point, do struggle with homelessness. But LA County specifically had a huge increase in homelessness during the pandemic, as again, a lot of cities have as well. It increased by almost 13%, with the the story I was reading said 82,955 people were homeless in 2022 in Los Angeles County alone. So just to kind of put this into perspective, SoFi Stadium, the brand new stadium that they just built for the Rams,
Huge.
Massive. The capacity of that stadium is 70,000 people. So that would not even house all of the homeless people of LA County in 2020.
Wouldn't be a great house for them anyways.
Definitely not.
Not the
Sitting
Rams
in one of
house.
those seats.
Oh, that's what
Oh,
you
yeah,
meant.
and Rams house. It's true.
Those guys.
So I think this is really cool. So kind of in response to this homelessness crisis, really, I'd say with those numbers, that's definitely a major crisis. LA County allocated a ton of resources to help organizations such as the Salvation Army
That's us.
serve and house the homeless population. And so I love the creativity of what the Salvation Army decided to do with those resources. They constructed these little tiny house communities and they call them Salvation Village. And there's a few of these. I think there's 3 of them already. There's one in like Harbor City, one in San Pedro, I think, and then one off the 110 freeway. You said you
but
drove.
that's not attached to the
it.
Salvation Army.
Oh, that is not. Okay.
No, it's, and I think all of these might not be attached to the Salvation Army. Just the Salvation Village one specifically is.
Oh, okay.
But it's the same type of housing.
Oh, got it. But these are really cool. So basically, they're these tiny houses that homeless people can stay in while they work out more permanent housing, which takes some time. And it's really cool. They can have their pets there. They can have their animals there. That's actually a pretty big barrier for homeless people trying to get into shelters. A lot of them don't allow pets because of, allergies and things like that for other residents. But it's really cool. So basically, they have a place to house their pets. They have a place to do laundry. They have showers. They have access to the internet, computer, that kind of stuff.
Case management.
They have caseworkers there. Yeah. And they help them basically get into more secure and permanent housing. And we'll attach I'll link a video so you can kind of see what they look like to the show notes. But they're really cool. I think it's a really just creative way just to house homeless people and help them like through the process, because I think a lot of times, I can't imagine being homeless in the sense of like you're trying to, apply for a job or you're trying to kind of like get ahead in certain areas, but like there's barriers upon barriers, I guess, like kind of one after another, and they sort of work against each other sometimes. So like, let's say you want to go to a job interview. Okay, that's great, but you need a nice, work outfit to wear to your interview. You need to usually have access to a shower or to laundry or that kind of stuff. And if you're living on the street, you generally don't have access to those things. So I think it's cool that everything's just all in one kind of space. So I think they have plans to build a couple of more of these in the area because it seems like the model is working pretty well, which I think is pretty cool. So I'm wondering, would you support this type of kind of village or community in your own neighborhood? Because for me, I used to live in San Pedro. I know exactly where they built one of these. And I think it's really interesting that these are it's just like in kind of a neighborhood area. Would you support this type of thing in your own neighborhood?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's difficult though. It's a very touchy topic. There's a lot of variables that are at stake. So initially I say yes, but there's a lot of variables at place of what the long-term plan is and all of that. What is it going to do for hygiene and different things? We've seen several stories in Southern California of that getting out of control. And so it is a little bit of a challenge. It's such the homeless topic has been kind of a fascinating topic for me. I've read a lot about it. And it's weird. There's a lot of things that I'll read about and I'm like, okay, I got an opinion on it. And with homelessness, I keep shifting over and over again because I wouldn't know what to do. And it seems so insurmountable to me. It's one of these topics that it's just, there's so many variables that are at play. You have families that have become homeless out of, a loss of a job or something like that. And they really, really want to get back into, and then you have others that are not. and or have mental health issues that they're not even aware of what all is going on. It's a really difficult thing. And I used to have pretty strong opinions about homelessness until our core, we, instead of doing a lock-in, like those terrible youth events,
Your favorite.
they're the worst.
Lock-ins.
They are the worst. We did a lockout, and so 3 homeless clients from our social service program came and spoke to the kids of what it's like to be homeless. And then the kids and the youth in the core built their own little houses out of cardboard and slept out that night in the front of the core and out there. And there's, homeless people right across the street and all that stuff. So it was right out there. It wasn't like we were tucked back in the core. And that was very challenging for me because a lot of what I thought was about homelessness was changed just by listening to them and listening to what they had to say and the reasons why they are and the reasons why they remained homeless. I don't know. It's really difficult. It's such a big challenge. I would love to see it be gone. It's so complex. It's very difficult, and it's sad in a lot of areas. And we've seen in Southern California encampments that pop up, and then encampments get shoveled out with tractors and different stuff, and it's very controversial back and forth. And like I could see the one side, I could see the other side. I don't know. I struggle with even just talking about it because it feels like there's not a proper solution. And, I think inherently all of us want like a solution. Let's just go for it and take it on. So it's difficult. I will say what I've noticed more and more is fires happening because of homeless encampments on my freeway home. So there's probably been 5 just in the last couple months.
As in they are starting a fire?
Yeah, a fire to like keep warm or something like that they might have gets out of control and it lights up the side of the freeway. And there's been about 5 in the last couple of months. And so like, I don't know, there's resources that need it, and it's sad, it's complicated and stuff. But I'll never forget though, the one lady who was talking, who's homeless, said the one thing that I just really want, like the question was, what do you want people who are not homeless, they're walking around, what do you want them to know? We're human, and you can wave to us and we'll wave back, and we just want that type of interaction. We are not anything different as far as human wise than what you are. And I thought that was pretty profound because I found myself just head down ignoring because I'm worried about what they may ask of me or anything like that. And that really forever changed they are human, and I think there's times where I forget that and or look down on them and shame or something like that. But they're human. They're just like all of us. They have needs, and their needs may be different as far as housing is concerned, but they still might have a lot of love to share for people, all that kind of stuff. It's challenging, but I was forever grateful for that experience to be able to listen to that because it really changed my perspective on it. I think before I'd be like, get a job.
Yeah.
But it's not that easy.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it gets more personal too when it's like in your city, right? So like exactly what you're asking is like in your area, how does it like affect you or those around you and whatnot? And obviously we don't want homelessness to be a thing, but like, if it will endanger, kids are walking on a trail and there's in my city, in Whittier, in our city, that's, there's a big trail and you want to walk or you want to run or whatever. And there's some sections where it's not as safe. And then there's some that are fine. And that's been a big problem with the city because you want to feel safe, obviously, but we don't, it's again, back and forth. Right. In Whittier specifically, there was a big encampment for like a while and they would come and go. And it was like, where are all these people going? It was very sad. And then just recently they turned the Whittier core, the building, into a shelter, which was like all sorts of emotions, right? Because it was like the core that I grew up in, and all of a sudden it became a shelter, which was cool because it was like a personal touch of like, something I'm involved with, which is the Salvation Army, was able to turn one of the buildings into housing for a lot of people in my own city, So it was really cool because it turned into like my house of worship to now a safe place for a bunch of people in my city. So that was really cool. Definitely like intense for those people that went to the core.
Yeah.
Seeing it turn into obviously now a shelter, but yeah, it's a safe space, which is still really, really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
shout out to them.
Yeah. I don't think there's an easy answer, simple answer. These are complex issues, like you're saying. But I appreciated the Salvation Army's creativity and just trying to meet an immediate need, and get people recognizing that it's not just about like serving them one time for one need, but it's a whole process. It's a comprehensive sort of like service that they're offering in one area to people. So I appreciate that creativity, and we'll post the video in the show links. So our show notes. We'll post the link to the video in the show notes. So make sure you check that out. Krystina, thank you so much for being here and sharing all about your favorite podcasts with us.
Don't judge me, world. Don't judge me.
Anything we've talked about in this episode is linked in the show notes. And if you enjoyed this episode, please don't
I would say
forget.
most things, not anything we talked about. Right?
Such as?
That's really difficult. I don't know. I fired off like 10 podcasts.
We could send Jordan those links.
I don't know.
Okay, some of what we've talked about. Then I'll let you self-filter those things.
As much as we can.
Yeah, as you guys know, our podcast is available on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. And also don't forget to like and subscribe so that if you can see new content from us. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll be back next week with a brand new episode. See you guys.
Peace out.